Welcome to Nite Callers Archives. Before Nite Callers became a vidcast on YouTube and Facebook, it was a live call-in show on Blog Talk Radio. We did things a little differently back then. It was a different time in the Bigfoot world. There were only a few podcasts, and Bigfoot was still taboo to talk about. We didn't have the TV shows, hundreds of Bigfoot groups and conferences, or funny memes that we have now. They were different times, folks. We've had many amazing hosts and knowledgeable guests over the years that helped get the Bigfoot community to where it is now. We hope you enjoy these older shows, as they are a phenomenal source of information and good times. If you hear a guest or host that you would love to see back on the current Nite Callers, please drop a comment. Enjoy the show.
Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone, on this beautiful Sunday afternoon, March 29th, 2009. My name's Laurie Phillips, and I'm here with my co-host, Tennessee Cherokee.
Hello, everyone.
I'm also here with my daughter, Laurie McGrory. She has been monitoring the phones in the chat and helping us out here, which we greatly appreciate it.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you for all your hard work, Lauren.
Yes, we appreciate you. She's basically behind the scenes a lot, and she's getting a little more courage to speak a little more often, too. And I just let her get graduated into it slowly but surely. I know Tennessee, he's natural, boy. He just gets right up there.
I had a lot of early training, though, Laurie.
Yes, he did.
I was in a radio station when I was a boy.
Yeah. See, so we got a real DJ here on Nite Callers tonight. I wanted to let everyone know that next week we are going to have Kathy Strain here. I just got the program description up, so I apologize for being so late, but I've been out researching, but we've got a great show tonight. I'm going to tell you. I know it's probably daylight everywhere where everyone's at, but if you could pull your drapes shut, turn off your lights, and light a candle. We have a very, very scary story to be told tonight. But before we bring that guest on, I'm going to bring on Donna Cohrs with Stalking Hominid Research. Stalking Hominid Research was created by her and her sister. They're out of Florida. It's a nonprofit organization that studies the Bigfoot. And they also take reports. They also take donations. Lauren, if you will put up that URL, they're great.
I'm ahead of you, Mom.
There's not a whole lot of people that have any kind of organization in Florida. I've noticed that. I've done a little research on it, and there's just very few. But there's a lot of activity in that area, a lot. So if you are listening in tonight and living in the Florida area and you want to contact Donna, she'd be glad to speak with you about anything that has happened. Tennessee, do you have anything to say before we hand it over to Donna?
I wanted to remind everyone that there is a really, really bad internet worm that is scheduled to be set free by all these Cohrs. And they're planning on doing it April Fool's Day, this Wednesday.
Ah.
It is very, very dangerous. I cannot remember the name of it. It starts with CON as the first three letters. I do remember that. But I went to Microsoft's website, and they said that they have put up things to try to protect everyone from that, but do not open any emails from people that you do not know. And also they say that you don't need to be typing in the name of that virus on a search engine because the hackers have got traps laid there too.
Oh.
So, I'm just trying to tell everybody because I know besides it being so malicious and destroying, millions of dollars of equipment, it destroys our sound files. It destroys all of our photographs, and we can't replace those things.
I can't see how many people I know that have lost their hard drives in the last month. It's getting rough out there. It really is.
Yes, it is. So I just want everybody to be aware that's going to be taking place Wednesday, and I think if I'm not mistaken, these hackers are starting out with 250,000 URLs the first day. And it's just going to multiply exponentially. So be careful.
Yes, be careful. We want to remind everyone that we will be taking calls the last half of the hour, and if you have any questions, to post them in chat in caps so that we can see them. Also, if you should call in the last part of the hour and you are in the chat room, it would be helpful if you'll put your, point it out, this is me and I'm trying to call in, because sometimes we can't get to you. So just be real persistent and we will get to you. I'd like to introduce everyone to Donna Cohrs. She is a very educated woman, but she also has a relentless interest in wildlife research and wildlife, love of animals, a real gentle soul. She is here with our guest tonight, Mr. Darrin Bishop. And Darrin is the one that had the incredible encounter with the skunk ape that we are going to hear about. But first, I want to hear from Donna how she met Darrin. So, Donna, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing just fine, guys. Just doing fine. It's
Okay.
good to be here. It's good to be here.
You're coming through loud and clear, honey. You're doing great.
Yeah.
Did somebody say I was talking too loud?
No, we hear you loud and clear.
Oh, okay, good.
Loud and clear, I said.
Okay. Anyway, thanks for putting the website up there for the people in the chat. I appreciate that.
Lauren, can you call it out over the air real quick?
The URL?
Yeah.
StalkingHominidR.com?
Yeah.
That R is supposed to be in there, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, it's StalkingHominidR.com. That's right. Well, it was through the website that I met Darrin.
He was a witness.
Yes, he was. And he had contacted Diane first about his encounter and also about wanting to interview some witnesses. She had me contact him since I'm in Florida and she's in Oregon. So I contacted Darrin and we talked for probably 2 hours. Originally what it was, he wanted me to help him interview a witness. Darrin is excellent at research, and he had found an article, very small article, about an encounter and sighting that had happened in 2004, I believe it was. I'm not looking at my web page right now, so we talked, and I agreed to go with him to interview the witness and with his parents, and pretty much the rest is history. After that, Darrin and I started going out to different places, researching together, and we've been doing it ever since.
Did Darrin tell you his story?
Oh yes, he did. When we were the first phone call we had together, he told me all about the encounter, and it's scary.
Yes, it is.
It's scary.
I have forgotten. I've been doing this for 8 years, and I have just, personally, very little scares me anymore, and I hate that. Because I really used to let that adrenaline when you get scared. It's just you're alive. Well,
yeah.
It's been so many years since I felt the way that Darrin felt that day that this occurred, but he told it in such a compelling way that, the hair was standing up on my arms.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that he can relay it efficiently to all of us. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce Darrin now. He said he was a little nervous, so we're going to try to make him feel as comfortable as possible. How are you doing today, Darrin?
Oh, very well, thank you.
Well,
Darrin, you just do like you did last Monday when Darrin was so nice. I sort of cold called him last Monday. I told him who I was, and I asked him if it would be all right if I recorded our conversation. He said that would be fine. He actually, most of the entire thing, I think he might have shortened it a little bit, but he was very kind, and he told it, and the story is so compelling that, well, there's no words to describe it, really. You'll just have to listen to him and make your own judgments. Thank you for coming, Darrin.
Oh, yes,
Darrin,
sir. Glad to be here.
Can I start by asking you about what kind of things you've done in your life? Kind of let our listeners understand that you were a retired firefighter, right?
Yes, I was. Yeah, I'm retired on disability from that, but I was a firefighter a little over 16 years.
Wow.
I grew up in South Florida, and I believe Donna said she lived down there, which was
yes, I did.
And when I grew up in South Florida, of course, in the 60s, it was just a paradise for kids anyway. And we lived on the fringes of ranch land and farmland that was fast being developed. The Everglades wasn't ever really too far away. And anyway, I spent a lot of time as a kid in the outdoors, playing in the woods and then organized sports. I lived on a lake, so I fished a lot, camped a lot, hunted some with my dad, if you want to call it hunted, you know how little kids do, running out in the woods with BB guns and stuff. And I've always fell in love with the outdoors, so much so that in high school, we had moved to Broward County, and at the time I was in Davie. I had a horse, orange groves around, hills, ridges, everything. The Everglades not far away, and a lot of the nights in high school, instead of going on dates, I would just take my horse out for rides or just go off in the woods, you know, in the dark, just to experience nature from a different aspect, especially when the moon was out and the orange blossoms were in bloom. It was just heavenly. So that's kind of
like paradise.
What I did. And I guess if you're out in those areas long enough, with the activity that we had, you know, with Bigfoot, or the Florida skunk ape, as they are apt to call it here. I know Donna's sister hates that term, so forgive me, Diane, but yeah, I had a couple of incidents over those years, and the last one kind of really put a damper on my outdoor adventurism, you might say. I worked in construction, so I was outdoors there. I liked to be outside, and then I was a surveyor, which would take me off in the tracts of land, and I don't want to take up a lot of the time, but I mean, I spent a lot of time in the outdoors, and then I became a firefighter.
When you were a youngster, going outside was not a problem.
Oh,
you didn't have a problem with...
And I relate to Tennessee, the Cherokee, that my stepbrother and I had an encounter in the Everglades, and at the time, I really wasn't exactly sure that it was a Bigfoot. I'm convinced now that it was, but you know, even that didn't really stop me from going outdoors at night and everything. It was just in the incident, you know, a few years later that changed everything.
Darrin, could you recall the first time that you ever heard anything about a Sasquatch when you were growing up?
Sure. Back in I guess it was around 1970, 71. At the time, my father would take me shooting almost every Sunday. We used to go out in the Everglades, the edge of the Everglades, and Highway 27 would bend north along the fringe of the Everglades, and we'd go off the beaten track and just shoot out there. And then back in those days, Griffin Road was a dirt road out west, didn't even come through, I don't think. And we had, I remember my mother telling me, I think I might have heard it on the news, but my mother was a little concerned, and they were saying that a man had hit something with a car, a big, hairy, wild man type thing. I didn't hear it referred to as a skunk ape then, but it was a big, hairy creature hit crossing Highway 27 that was really odd and strange and out of the ordinary, and it had dented his car, or messed his car up, but yet this thing just kept limping right off into the swamp, and then there was a search made with helicopters and dogs and things that really turned up nothing. And I remember I believed it. I think my mother believed it, and there was a reference to the old Patterson film, you know, but I just never really put two and two together, and I just thought at the time it was just a strange freak of nature is what I referred to it as, you know, that it was real, but once this thing had died off, that was the end of it. I never dreamt that there was whole populations of these things around, especially in the southeast. You And of course, we heard of the abominable snowman, but again, I never put two and two together. So that was the first time I ever heard of anything like that.
Growing up down there, I remember that story. There's a lot of hoopla about it.
That was big news. Big news at the time.
Darrin, are you ready to tell everyone your story? I know I'm ready to hear it again.
I'll tell it. Do you want me to just go ahead and just as a prelude, just basically say what happened with my stepbrother and me?
Yes.
And then we'll get back into the meat.
That might help relax me a little bit because, well, about 3 years, maybe 4 years after that story came out about the man hitting the thing with the car, and now that I've done some research, there had been steady reports all through that time. But I was not aware of it. We didn't have the internet back then and things like that. But about 3-4 years after that, my father and my stepmother they would go camping out in the Everglades about a mile west of Monroe Station on the Tamiami Trail, and that's way out there in the middle, and then especially back in the 70s that was. And there's a lake which I believe is now called Monument Lake out there, just north of Tamiami Trail. There's a campground established there. Back then it was a lot more primitive. Pretty much you just brought what you had and you made camp, and that was it. There were no facilities there. And anyway, being an adventurer I was, I got out there with my stepbrother a couple of days. The first day, he and I just went exploring everywhere, walking the buggy trails far west of the lake, I don't know, several hundred yards. There was this main north-south buggy trail, and there was an intersection with another trail that went west, and there was a great big tree out of the ordinary. I believe it was a cypress. I'm sure it was. It had white bark, whitish bark, and it was really, the lowest branch was really up high, and it was kind of a landmark for us. So I had talked him into, I was 15 at the time, he was 12. I had told him, I said, if Dad lets you take a little hot dog out tonight and see if we can't catch some kind of critter. You know how kids are. And I guess, anyway, the moon was out, not quite full, but it was out, and it was just beautiful outside. And you could see pretty well at night. So we went out to this tree area and broke the hot dog up and set it down, and we backed up, 20 yards or so away in some sawgrass, and we're looking, and of course nothing happened because the wind was at our back and anything could smell us, and I wasn't thinking about that. Didn't really know it at the time. And, we got bored, kept going up and checking it, and nothing happened, so we decided we'd leave it there and come looking in the morning to see if there were tracks or nibbles or anything like that, And as we were walking back to toward the camp trailer, I was just scanning the whole area, just seeing how beautiful everything looked at night. And I think I must have been a better part of 100 yards away. And I was scanning back past the tree, and then all of a sudden I saw something that caught my attention, and I looked back at the tree, and I saw what to me looked like a very big, bulky, strange kind of looking bear. When I first saw it, it was just something big and darker than the night. The night was very gray. The tree stood out in the moonlight, and something was to the left of it moving, looking like it was walking upright, big and bulky, and it walked, and it stopped at the tree, and then it reached out up on this low branch, which was very high, and stopped for a second, and then it was moving a little bit to the north, and I looked over at my stepbrother. He had stopped with me, and I looked over, and I said to him, "Do you see what I see, or do you see that?" And when I turned to look at him, his eyes were fixed on the same point that I was looking at, and he was seeing what I was seeing. So he took off running, and naturally I didn't want to be left there, so I took off and raced to the trailer, and I got in all excited, and I'm telling Dad, we just saw this great big bear walking around on its hind legs by this tree out there, and he's smiling at us, the way adults generally do. And I said, "Really?" And he said, I said, "What?" He's smiling, looking at me. He said, "Son, bears don't walk on their hind legs." And I thought he just was inferring that we were imagining something, and I knew both of us didn't see something. So I got kind of annoyed, and I said, "Dad, we really saw something." And he said, "Oh, I believe you saw something, but bears don't walk on their hind legs." So I was just convinced, it doesn't matter what he says. We saw a great, big, huge bear. And the next we kind of were, scampering along to go out there to check out the area to see if there was big bear footprints or something, because there were deer footprints everywhere, all different shapes and sizes, hog. I mean, it was just there were footprints everywhere of every kind of animal imaginable. I didn't see a Bigfoot footprint, but anyway, I didn't even get to the tree because as I was getting close to it, it dawned on me really quick that this thing was standing and reaching up by this bottom limb, which was taller than our ceiling at home, and the ceiling's about 8 foot tall. So I started looking over my shoulder and running and trotting back to the camper, saying, "I'm not we're out here with this big bear running around." You know? and then so now that I look back, obviously bears don't walk on their hind legs, and there has been a lot of activity in that area. So the question is, has there been other sightings there? Yes, there has, and I'm convinced that's what we saw. But it didn't bother me too much. Now, fast forward a few years later, we moved up to Broward County. In this area, I wish I could describe it as accurately as it is. State Road 84, which is now 595, it runs northwest out into the Everglades, and it intersects with Highway 27, and the Everglades is west of 27. It actually came all the way in. It was being settled, but there's nothing west of 27 or north of this area, 84, just a few miles to the northwest of this area that the encounter occurred in. And in that area, there were a lot of farms and ranches and broken land, overgrown fields, orange groves, actually some wooded ridges, which are unique to South Florida, and they were just beautiful. It was a battlefield where the Seminole Indians had fought the Army. It had a lot of history, great big mature oak trees and pines and brush, and there was a pack of wild hogs running through there. It was just kind of my playground. And I used to go riding quite often or walking out at night, either with my friends or on horseback or on foot with my dog or by myself, and just spent several years there. And then one particular night, I was what's now Treetops Park. Then we called it Taylor's. It was just all part of the woods, and there was nothing out there. I was walking my horse through this one area, and it was so dark in there I couldn't even see, which was quite often the situation in the thick woods. And just giving her free rein, and she was picking her way. And there was this swampy area off to my left. And suddenly, it was a little still in there, too, and quiet, which wasn't totally out of the ordinary, but it was rare. And it was very quiet here. And all of a sudden, my horse just stopped and tensed up, and I could feel her shift her head toward the left. I knew she was looking in that direction, but I couldn't see anything. Well,
were you riding her or walking beside her?
I was riding her, but I used to ride bareback a lot, and I just but she stopped so suddenly that I almost went over her head, and so I just I had her. I just had grabbed a handful of her mane with my left hand, and I was looking in that direction, not that I could see anything, and I didn't know what to think. There was rumors about a big wild bobcat and wildcats around, and I did run into that one day, incidentally, a few years later, jogging one morning after work when I was in the fire department on a foggy trail. But anyway, that's what I was thinking, what could this be? But just as she looked in that direction, about 10 yards away, this loud crack, something stepped on a branch in the ground and snapped it. And I knew she was going to bolt, so I just went with her, turned her and, get up, and she took off running. And I was bent over thinking, oh my God, a branch is going to knock me off, don't leave me here. But but we got out, and it was just a rush, I just felt like the king of cool. When you get away with something like that, it's just an awesome, great feeling, that rush, And I come trotting back to the ranch, and this it was about 12:30, 1 in the morning, close probably around just after midnight, and this gal was out with her beau. She was always sitting with this guy she liked, and at the ranch in the spotlight, sitting on the bench, kind of just, and she was asking me about my ride, etc. How you doing? And I was telling her, I said, man, the neatest thing, I said, it was wild back in Taylor's, and I'm explaining the situation, and she's looking at me very concerned and annoyed looking, and she says, excuse me, I'm on radio, but she tells me, she says, you're plumb crazy to be going out places like that at night. You better watch out or you're going to get ate up by a damn skunk ape, is exactly the words she said.
Oh, Lord.
For a second, a chill went through me. And I says, and then this, what? A skunk ape? Come on, I've been going out here. She goes, I'm telling you, there's been cattle killed and they've been sighted and all this and that and hit. And I found out this was all true after, but at the time I hadn't really heard anything like this. But it did give me a sudden chill just to think, what if, And then I says, nah, come on, I've been riding out here all these years, and my horse has never spooked until tonight. My dogs have never acted funny. The animals would know. I said, I've never had anything happen. I've camped out here. I've been walking. I've never even had a creepy feeling or anything. I said, nah. But I did go and I bought this big Bowie knife from Kmart. Right after, just when I'm out on these night rides, thinking, well, if it was a wildcat, whatever, something was there, and then gradually less and less, I did away with it. Well, okay, this was about 78. Come to the end of 81. Now I'm a surveyor. I don't ride as much anymore. I'm not working out as much, but I was 21 and I felt like tough. I could eat nails. I could do anything, go anywhere. I was very confident of myself. And had grown up with 6 boys out there and a father who kind of a Western kind of a guy, and had a certain philosophy that I had sort of adopted. You just be good and you don't run from anything and you don't cause trouble, but you don't run from it. That kind of way. And I was dating a girl. It's ironic because I'm living up in the area now where she was, about 180 miles north in Central Florida now. But at the time I was down there, and I had, she was, I guess, my first love. So I was kind of missing her, and it was just one of those nights. I believe it was close to a weekend, or it was a weekend. So I decided, I'm going to go up and see my friends. I hadn't seen them in a while. We'll go for a walk out in the groves. They're starting to develop places, and I knew eventually, as a surveyor, one day that would probably be developed too, and it would be gone forever. So I wanted to go out and experience it, and just go for a walk with my buddies out there. They had started building these, rebuilding these condominiums to the north on this northeast side of this ridge, about a mile and a half away. So there was a big swimming pool in this area and the lights, so that was the plan. I'm thinking we'll just go for a walk up there, stop at this water fountain, this pool, and head back and just catch up on old times. And this is the creepy part that, I don't know, it makes me feel weird just to even bring it up, but as I was thinking about all this rather rapidly, I just had this premonition, this bad feeling. Don't go out there tonight. And I didn't really know what to make of it. And I was just thinking, it must be something to do with, missing this girl, And
y'all listen to all this. Excuse me for butting in there, but
sure.
Y'all pay attention to this bad feeling.
Yes, because a lot of us have had that. So he's not alone. But go ahead, Darrin.
Well, I never really heard of this or read about it. But anyway, I get in my car and I start driving up toward the area. And as I was going, the feeling was getting gradually stronger, and I just was surprised at it because nothing like that had ever happened. So I got up to my friend's house and I went inside, and a couple of the boys were married, but there were still 4 that lived at home. And I got there, and my friend's dad and mom were sitting in the upstairs, and his fiance was sitting there. And I asked where he was, and they said, "Oh, he's out," and the rest of them are out. They were all in places. Nothing like that had ever happened before. It just had never presented before. And I specifically remember, even to this day, just feeling kind of odd and thinking, maybe something's trying to tell me don't go out there tonight. And then I thought, this is ridiculous. This is my playground. This is I've been out here forever. This is nuts. I must be soft because of this girl or something, I don't know. So I went down, but even so, because I was feeling a little bit, funny, I was saying to myself, well, I'll take his big hound dog, Dillinger, out with me, well, that'll be kind of added insurance, it'll be good to have him around. And they were out. They were gone. So then I really started thinking, I really feel like something's trying to tell me don't go out here. But I thought, what could happen? I mean, I'm 21, I'm, tough, nothing's happened. So on I went. As soon as I crossed the road and got out in the orange groves down this tractor road, it was really feeling wrong. But on I went, and as I was describing, I remember looking up. There was a better part of a moon out, and it was really nice out. Some of the orange blossoms were in bloom, and it was. And I always would, quite often when I was out looking up around the sky, especially when you see the stars, it would just remind me of all the things that God made, and I would usually just give thanks in one way or another in my own special way. Thank you, Lord, for this beauty, this bounty. And I remember doing that, and I started to feel more at ease. It started to feel like old times again. It was starting to really feel good. But going down this tractor road heading west, there was a tree line about 3/4 of a mile off, which was the beginning of that ridge line, and there was hammocks of oaks, mainly oak hardwoods, with a lot of underbrush. And when I was looking toward that tree line, I just got very uncomfortable. And so I'm looking around, and in no time at all, I get to this tree line. Now, I had to make a right turn heading north, curve around into the woods. The trail curved around into the woods, and then it went north again, across this little gully, a broken-down fence, and through about 80, 90 yards of very thick woods, and then you would come out on this ridge. And it used to be that the ridge was pretty much open with clumps of mature trees everywhere. However, at this time, for some reason, the new property owners had let it go, and it had gotten very brushy and thick everywhere, very impassable, and so did the woods. Well, as soon as I got into these woods and made that turn, apparently I startled something. I thought, I didn't know what it was. As soon as I come around the curve into these woods, I heard this thing about 20, 30 yards away and about 10 foot up. I thought it was roosting in the oak trees, and it was a very shrill, startled sound, and I only heard it one time, and it really puzzled me, and I was thinking to myself, what kind of bird is that? Because, not that it was a bird, but that's the closest thing I can describe it as. And it didn't scare me so much, it just startled me, and it puzzled me, and I'm one of those analytical types. And I'm thinking, that is very strange, and at 10:30 at night, what in the world would that be? So I was walking along to the north, and I was noticing how thick everything had gotten, the underbrush and everything, but looking over, I just was very puzzled, and I'm thinking, that is really strange. I've never heard anything like that ever. So, and then as I described to Tennessee and to Donna, there was this great big oak tree that the trail would curve around it. It would almost run through it, but it had a curve around it. This oak tree that had been felled by a hurricane. I bring this up all the time because the thing just amazed me. You have this huge tract of mature oaks, and this one gets toppled, from the hurricanes of the 50s, I believe. And yet, even so, one of the branches that were off the trunk grew upright and became a tree in its own right, and persevered and made it right up through the canopy with all the other ones. And that used to be to me a lesson of perseverance. I would see that and it would just amaze me. Well, I was looking at that thing. My concentration was on that, and my amazement was on that, so I was at ease. And then I curved around the tree, and I got a few steps, and all of a sudden, without any warning at all, boy, this is weird to even say. All my hair started to stand up everywhere. And at the same time, I became very, very concerned off to my left over my shoulder, back about the area that I heard that bird call. And I was thinking to myself, it just came up on me, and all of a sudden, without warning, and I was thinking, what is this and why? And I'm looking over there, and I couldn't see, it was dark, but I got a very vulnerable feeling like I never had before. I instantly I felt my hip. There was no Bowie knife, there was no buck knife, nothing. And I felt very vulnerable and unarmed, and I did not feel good about it at all. I felt like I was in very grave danger, and I needed to get out of there in a hurry. And my dad had told me something when I was young. He never left me. Son, if you're ever out in the woods and anything happens or something's gone wrong, never panic, because it will just make the situation worse. And I was thinking about that, and I'm thinking, gosh, I just want to tear off running, but I got to so I was walking really quickly along this trail, looking over my left shoulder, and I'm thinking, okay, I have about 80 yards to get out of here and to the clearing, and I want to get out of here now. So I was walking very quickly, looking over my shoulder. I didn't see anything, I didn't hear anything, and I didn't smell anything, but I was upwind. And that's another thing I'd just like to bring up right now. The thing in the Everglades was downwind, and this thing was downwind. And there's been a few other instances where I'm not going to say there was an encounter, but something out of the ordinary. And it always seems like this creature can place itself downwind of a person, almost like they're smelling you or sizing you up from your downwind position. It was very, very... but I like I said, I didn't know. So at this time, I didn't even really know what to think about these things or much believe in them. So I'm looking in that direction, and I got out of there in a hurry. And once I got to this clearing about 80, 90 yards away without incident, I was still very concerned and alarmed, but I just remember feeling this overwhelming sense of relief just to be out of there. And but I was still concerned about it. But I started to work up my way up on this ridge, and as I got up on it another 50, 60 yards, there was what I called an overlook. I could look back east, and I always often did, back at the road that was about the better part of a mile away, looking at the little traffic, the little cars going up and down. And I was also noticing all the brush and everything that had grown up, and it kind of it kind of annoyed me, really, because a lot of the beauty of the ridge was gone. The moonlight that used to light everything up, it didn't penetrate at all. It was just a dark tree line with a bunch of brush about 30 yards behind me now. And that's the tree line that kind of went and continued down into that thick woods I had just left. But I was looking, I guess I was comfortable enough, evidently, because I was looking off at that road far away, and I had turned my back on this wood line. And there was a great big lake down below me, and then off to the right, a irrigation ditch, canal type of thing that ran into it. So you couldn't go east. And I definitely didn't want to go back the way I just came right then. So if anything happened, the only thing to do was to go north a good part of a mile to that State Road 84 highway, and then I would have to go east, to the road I came from and back south. And I'm looking along and, started to get at ease, and then I started walking. Now I'm on this sandy horse trail, and I start walking, and almost immediately off to my left in that tree line, I heard these leaves were crunching, and very, very pronounced, and it surprised me. And I took a few steps.
What did it sound like? Something stepping?
Well, I stopped, and then immediately the leaves stopped crunching, and I was starting to get alarmed. I was starting that uncomfortable feeling of alarm and everything, and that premonition that was all welling up in me, slowly but surely welling up in me. And I looked over, and the first thing I was thinking, I guess it's a human natural response to think logically. Okay, what is this, from a logical standpoint? And I was thinking to myself, well, that pack of hogs that runs around in here, maybe it must be the hogs, But why would they be following along by me? And besides, it didn't sound like hogs. It sounded more like two bipedal steps that I was hearing. And as I started to think that, I didn't like what that was leading to. So I'm looking. I've stopped, dead still, looking at this right where the sound was, about 30 yards away, and it was dead still. So I started walking along again, looking now straight at that area. And as I started walking again, I hear crunch, 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 very loud, two definite, distinct steps. Got a few more steps, and then I stopped again, and I was thinking to myself, could this be an echo? And then I said, no, I'm in sand, but I hear leaves crunching. And it was very heavy sounds. And as I described, anybody that's been around horses, if you hear a horse walking or trotting along next to you, especially trotting along or something, you feel the ground, you can hear it and feel the ground sort of reverberate a little. Definite difference between that or if a dog or a person is just walking or trotting along beside you. Well, that's what this reminded me of almost at once. I was thinking, this is almost like a two-legged horse is walking in those trees. And the only other thing it could have been would be a person. And I was thinking to myself, what nut would be out here at 10:30 at night just sitting in some woods, the odds of anybody coming through here would be almost astronomically nil. Nobody comes out there, So if somebody wouldn't just be out there and decide to stalk somebody, And besides, it was way too heavy for a person. I knew that almost at once. So I started to get that feeling was welling up in me, and I backed up. I was by that lake, and I was backing down the ridge toward that shoreline of that lake, trying to draw out whatever it was. I wanted to see what was following me, but I didn't want to see. And it was becoming apparent to me what was going on. But in a situation like that, where you've never really believed this, it's so surreal. It's so just unconscionable. It's unbelievable that it's almost like a dream. You can't believe what's happening is happening. But time, this feeling in me, I started to put two and two together. I'm thinking, this is what that premonition was, And I had this feeling that I was just going to be literally ripped apart and eaten alive. That's the only way I can describe it. Like something was just going to come and eat me up. And I started to feel like I wasn't going to make it out of there alive, and nothing like that had ever happened. And I was putting all this together. Nothing like this has ever happened, but whatever's up there was the same thing that was back in the woods that just frightened me, and this is not good. I'm being stalked. I knew right then I was being stalked, and so I turned around and I was thinking about swimming across the lake, and I couldn't do that because I had this feeling that if I tried to swim across that lake, whatever it was just going to come catch me and drown me, and I didn't want that to happen. And I had no way to go, so I looked north to those condominium lights. They were so far away. They were close but too far. I couldn't yell. So I started praying like I've never prayed before for deliverance, asking God, forgive me. I was so stupid. I shouldn't have come out here. That's what that gut feeling was. I didn't listen to it. I think I may have even, said I'll be a missionary to Africa. Just get me out of here, And anyway, as I'm
amazing
looking,
what you promise when you're afraid.
Oh yeah, and I had picked up a boulder and a stick. The first things I could see laying around there. I had a little boulder in one hand, a stick in the other. Not that it would do much, but I was thinking, okay, I can't run, I can't go anywhere. Whatever it is, I had this feeling it was going to come out running toward me at any second. I just had a feeling, that this thing's coming. But I was praying so earnestly, and nothing came out, and I was surprised. And I'm thinking, whatever it is, I'm going to just have to battle it right here, Nothing came out, so I started thinking, well, gee, maybe it went away, maybe it went back. So I'm thinking, okay, if I walk up at an angle and get back on this trail, I've only got a few hundred yards to this condominium area. There's a light there, there's security, there's people, If I could just get up there, I think I'll be safe. Too far to run. I knew I couldn't run a sustained sprint from that distance. So anyway, I walked, after about a minute or so, I walked up at an angle, creeping up slowly, looking, got to the trail. I still didn't hear any footsteps, and I'm thinking, oh, boy, But I felt very alarmed, still in danger. Well, I start walking once again on the trail, and there go I hear the crunch, crunch, crunch. It's still, and I noticed that the tree line converged up ahead, almost right up to the trail. I could see it coming closer and converging, and I'm thinking, well, this thing's gonna it'll stay in the tree line and it'll get me up ahead, And I knew about right then and there what I was dealing with, because I specifically remember thinking, I just can't believe it. This is one of those things. That's how I was saying it to myself. This is one of those things. My God, they're really real. I can't believe this is happening. I'm going to get ate up by something I never even believed in, and I was terrified. When I hear this crunch, crunch, crunch again, I did an incredibly stupid thing. All these emotions are going, and I still had that part of me that, hey, this is my terrain, my realm. Nothing's going to chase me out of here. Well, I heard that crunching, and I realized, well, I guess it didn't go away. And I stopped and turned, and I faced the area, and the footsteps stopped again. So I got kind of bold. I thought, okay, we'll see. So I start walking toward this sound. And I'm telling you, I got about 3 or 4 steps, and I just had to stop. Every step, this fear just went up exponentially. Like, are you crazy? You're going to be ripped and destroyed. Stop. My heart was beating. It sounded like it was coming out of my neck. I could feel it, and it was so fast. I really thought I was going to have a heart attack from the fear. And I'm thinking, this is ridiculous. So I'm going to have to. I had no choice. So I just turned and started walking really quickly toward the light. I heard the sound, and it sounded like it was getting closer and heavier. And I realized, I'm not going to be able to stay 100 yards ahead of this thing and get a running jump on it. I'm going to have to go now. And when I took off running, I was surprised at how fast I was going. You just never know how fast you can do things when you're scared. I was going like a running Turk. But what really surprised me even more was that the footsteps started running almost instantly as well. And running and crashing through this brush, they got louder and heavier, and that's when I really noticed the ground, like it felt like a horse. And that terrified me. So it took me probably 12, 15 seconds. It seemed like forever. I just knew this thing was
here's where the hair stands up, right here.
And it was bearing down on me, bearing down on me. And I got down, I got right to the point where the light was, and I veered off down the slope, and I remember I just had to stop and turn around and see what was chasing me. I just had to see it. Well, the woods came almost right around to the curve, right around to the trail, and this thing stopped right in these woods. I could see 15, 20 yards away. I knew exactly where it was. And by now, I'm down by this lighted pool. There's 2 condominiums. I can scream for help. Well, this rage went through me. Now that I got away with my life, this rage just went through me, because I got away with it. Whatever just scared the heck out of me. And I was looking at that tree line, and I was so mad. And I tried to walk up on it again, and I just could not go. I would take a couple of steps, and my body just would not let me go. And I'm looking around for something to throw. I was so mad. And then I looked down.
You were mad at yourself because it had put you in that position.
It terrified me.
Put you on the defensive.
So I got down. I saw this couple walking down by the pool, and I ran up to them. I must have been a maniac. And I said, it was a guy and a girl, and I said, hey, listen, has something to the effect, has anybody had any weird incidents? Has anything been strange been happening around these trails at night? And they didn't say a word. They just looked at me. I must have looked like a crazed maniac, the expression that I saw on their face, and it demoralized me. And I said, why have they let this place go? Has something been scaring the maintenance crews off? And they just looked at each other and smiled and walked away. Well, it just crushed me, So I'm looking at this ridge, and I'm thinking, this thing's right up there. And I went to the water fountain. I was gulping water down. I remember that. And then I'm sitting there, and I'm thinking, this is crazy. Or maybe I'm crazy, It's got to be, there's got to be a logical explanation for this, Did this just really happen? I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't accept it yet. And I'm looking up there, and I'm thinking, okay, whatever it is, it's there. Now I'm going to have to walk all the way up to State Road 84 and all the way down, and or I can go behind this condominium and shoot right back down by that lake shore and come out on that ridge. That's far down. You can't see all the way back up here, so it can't see me. And then I could just, truck on through those woods on the edge and bypass everything, get out in the orange groves, and I got, less than a mile to go. And I was thinking to myself, it's either that or I can go do this. And I can't even believe this is happening anyway. So I determined, and it was partly my pride, that nothing's going to deter me from my plans. I was like that. So that's what I decided to do, which was very stupid. I'm trotting along behind this condominium, and then there was another one a little bit farther jutting over, and I got by it, and then I was, by this lake shore, and I came out, and by the time I got back to right where it all had begun, now I'm back in this dark, I'm too far, and I'm looking back, and I'm at how far these lights are, and I'm right out in the middle again, and I'm thinking this was not a smart thing to do, because I was starting to feel very, very
vulnerable again.
I had that premonition, but also what I had just been through, it was all coming back right there, and I'm thinking, oh my God, this was not smart. And I hesitated, and I said, well, I can't go back, because if I start heading back, I was thinking it was still there. Apparently it had just that quickly gone back to the area that, back to toward those woods. And I didn't know this. I'm thinking it's still back north, over my right shoulder back, by the condominium. So I'm thinking if I start going back there and it's coming my way, it'll just cut me off, intercept me, and I'm really in trouble because I'll have nowhere to go then. So I got, that thought frightened me. So I said, I better get moving now. So I start trotting along south now, the opposite way, back along that ridge line. I was going to be going down the ridge back into those woods, but I was going to jut to the left. And I'm thinking, boy, I did it now.
The nightmare's not over.
And I'm looking to the right over my shoulder thinking all the time, well, I'm thinking I can't see down there, so it can't see me either. So that's good. Well, just about all this time, from almost the same area that the stalking began, just a little farther down, all of a sudden I just hear this crashing, running, heavy footsteps come crashing, running right at me. There was no walking this time. It just started right at me. And I immediately knew what it was, and I immediately knew that I was a very far distance to be running now, and that this time it got to jump on me. And I ran with all that I had in me. I mean, I was terrified, thinking for sure it's got me and I'm dead, And I ran, and somehow it stayed in that tree line, and it got closer, but the same thing. I got down to that lighted area. It stopped right in the same spot, right off the trail, right in the same dark woods. But I didn't stop this time. I kept running. I was terrified. All pride, everything was gone now. I was crushed and in a near state of panic. Well, not a near state of panic. I was beyond panic. And I kept running all the way through the condominium development, the service roads. I don't think I stopped till I was halfway to State Road 84. And then I just alternated between walking and jogging, just thinking, I can't believe this happened. And when I was coming down that Pine Island Road back to my car, and I almost cried when I saw my car. You know, when I got there, I'm looking across the road the whole time at these, at the orange groves and the brush, and I could see that ridge about a mile off, and all I kept thinking was, oh my God, I'm going to hear this thing come, I'm going to hear it running. It's going to know I'm over here, and it's going to be running at me. And I was very concerned that it was going to smell me and track me down by my smell. I left that out when I talked to Cherokee the other day, but I remembered that now, that I had this distinct fear that this thing was going to track me down by my smell and just get me. It was out to get me. I think, looking back, it may have just been protecting something, or just didn't want me there. And when I dared to come back, it annoyed it and it chased me, I think now what I know, it could have had me if it wanted, for sure. I did run fast, but it could have probably had me if it wanted me. But in any case, that premonition was just a strange thing. When I got back to the house, I tried to gather myself and said, okay, I'll, just go inside, get a glass of tea, and go home. And as soon as I got in there, my friend's fiance knew something happened. She said, Darrin, what happened? And I said, nothing. And she said, don't lie to me, boy. I can tell something happened to you. And after going back and forth a couple of times, I just, at first I said, well, just, something, nothing, just something kind of gave me a scare up on the ridge. Well, the boy's father, he sat forward in his chair and he said, what do you mean something scared you? And he started taking me to task, and one thing led to another, and I finally said, well, I really think a skunk ape came after me tonight. And a what? Come on, we've been living out there all these years, and that's why when you guys are saying, it's compelling, and I buried this. I never, after going back and forth with him about it, I said, look, I don't know what to tell you, it's very plausible what you're saying. I agree. I was trying to figure this out myself, but all I can tell you is one wandered in this area tonight for some reason, and it's there. And I wouldn't have gone out there with those boys if they had come back. I wouldn't have gone out there with Green Berets at that point. I was so terrible. And I had such bad nightmares when I got home. I just kept waking up like it was happening all over again. And the nightmares were as bad as the incident. And at that point, I just determined I'm going to have to go out there tomorrow night and find this thing and kill it, because I'm never going to sleep again until I do. This thing just scared me that bad. And I went out the next night. I had my dog, my .22 rifle, my Bowie knife, and I went everywhere looking and trying to get this thing, scared to death. But and I had this feeling the whole time, this thing is watching me, and I can't get close to it, and it frustrated me. And after about two hours, I went home, and I never could go out there again, or any woods at night, except about 2 months later, visiting that friend's house again. The boys were out again, like deja vu. Man sort of challenged me, I think, why don't you take, they had this horse that was skittish and needed to be rode more, and he basically asked me, I think it would be a good idea. Why don't you take the horse and go for a ride out there tonight? This ridge was like my heaven on earth. I loved this place. And I took it as a challenge, and I almost felt like he must have felt like I was a coward. And at that age, that would be like the most terrible thing. That was worse almost than the incident, being thought of as a coward and even thinking myself one. So I went out, and the whole time I went out on this ride, that whole circuit, I just knew the thing was going to be waiting, and snatch me right off the back of the horse as I rode through the trees. But I went, I made the circuit, nothing ever happened, only in replay in my mind, And I got to tell you, when I got in those groves, I was so relieved to be off that ridge, the ridge that I always loved, that I always just loved to be at. I could never, right then and there, it was over for me. And the way I describe it, I was starting to write a book. The way I describe it in the introduction is that was literally a rape of my outdoor innocence that happened that night. And I couldn't go out even when we came here. There's a big preserve south of me. Well, one night I turned down this road and I saw that preserve, and I stopped, and it was dark out and the woods were right there. I was so scared I couldn't get out of my truck. Right on the road, just in that close to the woods. And I've really been making myself go out with my son and my dogs. I don't go out alone yet, but I've been going out with my son and my dogs and Donna, and we've had some pretty interesting experiences. And but that was a turning point for sure.
Wow.
That's what happened.
Thank you you did wonderful.
Oh, thanks. All I can buried this for years, and I'll tell you after how that came out. How I faced this thing, but it was my youngest, one of my 4 children.
brought a book, home that my mother gave him called Sasquatch, and that's kind of what started this whole thing. That I've after 20-some years been able to face this, and because I just buried it, and I didn't. And I never told a soul, because the response I got from my friend's father and everything, right in front of the women, no less, I thought, I don't ever want to go through that again, so I didn't tell a soul. And, I didn't think anybody would ever believe me. I scarcely could believe it myself.
Welcome back to Nite Callers. It's been a very interesting show so far. I just love this guest. She's great. We do have a call, don't we, Lauren? Don't we have a call?
936 area code.
Go ahead, 936.
Oh, I'm on the air?
Yes.
Hey, who is your guest? Is it David? Is that his name?
Darrin.
No, his name is Darrin.
Darrin, I'm sorry.
Florida. Okay.
Is he back from his break as well, or?
Yes, I'm here.
Think so.
I came into the show late, and I'm just curious what you were doing when you had this encounter.
Well, like I explained earlier, I hadn't seen some of my friends in quite a while, and I just wanted to go out with them. We used to go off and walk in this area, just shoot the breeze, catch up on old times and each other's lives. And I had gone out to see my buddies that night, and they were all just out, different places. So being that the moon was out and it was kind of a nice night, the orange blossoms were in bloom in the nearby orange groves, I just decided to take a walk out there. I used to love this area, especially this ridge, and I went out quite often in the evening for a walk, and I just thought it would be no different than any other time over the years that I had gone out there, other than the premonition that I had before going.
I see. I'm just trying to figure out if you did anything that would cause aggression on the hairy person's part.
No, I just think when I came around into the woods out of that orange grove, and I turned the corner in the trail, and I startled something. There was a very strange call or noise that was made, and it was right after that I was walking along that I believe is when the stalking started. And I just think I may have possibly invaded its territory that night. I didn't get to say, but on the BFRO website, there was another incident that's been recorded in almost the same identical area within about a year of that incident. And I found that after I started doing research, and that's what just cemented it to me, because that and another incident that had happened to a friend of me out there earlier, it all just added up, I mean, I knew that night, but I'm just sure of it now, because there was a definite incident right in the area within a year, plus all the cattle and other things that had been killed in the area and sightings that had been seen, and they'd been hit on the road not too far from there, miles away. It was just an area of a lot of activity, but I didn't know this then.
Mm-hmm.
That answers my question. I was just wondering if there was anything you might have done, and he may have been inspecting the orange trees to try and get an orange or some of the blossoms or whatever the case may be. But I've had them follow me through the woods before like that, and all I can tell you is if you have another encounter, don't show any fear, because they'll respond to that.
Yeah. Well, I'll keep that in mind. I will try not to. I'm a lot more curious, and I certainly respect them more now and their right to exist here, and I actually admire them. I think they're the greatest hunters, and they are without a doubt the greatest hunters and outdoor prowlers or whatever around. I mean, they're just amazing. Their attributes are truly amazing. They're so far beyond us in sight and hearing and everything. It's just amazing.
Yeah, I've had them within 10 feet of me in the woods at night before, and it just doesn't bother me. So, and making noise that couldn't be mistaken for any other wildlife. So, I've been where you're at. It never has dawned on me to be bothered by it. So, my advice to you is, when you have your next encounter, and I'm sure you will, don't show them any fear.
Well, we thank you for that. We do have another caller.
Thanks for taking my call.
I appreciate
it. All
that.
right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Area code 731, you're on the air.
That's me.
Oh, what are you doing? Are you on two different phones?
No, I had some problems. Something took a hit at my security system and knocked me completely off. and I booted up and everything.
Earlier.
I hope it's not that.
We have a 903 area code calling in that's not Tennessee. And she or he is on the air.
Hey, Laurie.
Yes, hello.
It's Mike.
Hey, it's my call, everybody, from last week.
Hey, Mike. How are you guys? I got in late. I missed the first half. I kind of feel bad about that. But I am curious, what time of year? I don't know if you related this earlier or not. Darrin, I don't know if that was something that you'd talked about. What time of year was it? And
well, I'm pretty sure it was about November, give or take a month. 1981 November.
Okay. Was there any well, being a skunk ape, of course, hence the name of the smell. Was there any associated smells with it, or?
I did not smell anything, and like I stated, I was upwind of whatever was by me. And
oh, okay.
It was a decent breeze because I do remember hearing it rustling in the orange trees and the other trees a little bit. So I know there was we always had a southeast trade wind down in South Florida. It's really kind of nice.
Right.
And quite often had a southeast trade wind, and the wind was blowing from the easterly direction that night. And because I did remember a little bit about that. I realized I was upwind of whatever was stalking me. At some point, I figured that all out, and that's why I knew I was being stalked.
Okay. All right. Hey, interesting story. And again, Laurie, Tennessee, great job, guys. I'm going to just let you go now and continue to listen on.
Well, I'll tell
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for calling.
Oh, hey,
Mike,
you guys are welcome.
You need to do that download. Do the download thing so you can hear the whole story.
I plan on it. As soon as everything's done, I plan it. I promise.
Okay.
All right, bye, guys.
All right,
bye-bye.
Thanks for calling. Bye-bye. So, while we're waiting for other callers, by the way, everyone, we are taking calls right now, 646-716-4530. We welcome all calls. Darrin, how are you doing today as far as dealing with the woods and everything? Are you working on trying to overcome your experience?
Yeah, before I met Donna and talked to Diane, I had talked briefly to Dan Jackson. He was a nice gentleman, very helpful with some things, and I had gotten invited on an expedition down there, and I couldn't go. We were trying to move after our hurricane damage, but frankly, I was terrified to think about it just the same, not to being out there in daytime, but even with a group to be out at night. And once I got up here, like I said, I got my teenage son with me, young teens, and our 2 dogs, and we started venturing out in this wooded area at night a little bit more and more. And I was a little uneasy. Well, not a little. I was pretty uneasy. But I mean, the first night I went out there, I actually got off this main road and going down the trail, and I remember something hit a pine tree, and I'm sure that it was another tree or a branch broke or something. But I remember I really shouldn't say this on the air, but I kept a little Beretta pistol in my pocket, not that I could do anything, but just to give it. And I grabbed onto that thing. I'm not one of these nuts that'll just shoot, first and ask questions.
No.
I would not want it. I had my hand on it, and I said to my son, okay, I know that's nothing, but I think I've gone far enough tonight, so I got out of there, and I just try to get in a little bit more every time. And recently I had been out on a night excursion with Donna, doing some research in an area not far from the St. Johns River, and I was thanking her. I had my son with me again, too, because I've been trying to get him somewhat interested in this.
Mm-hmm.
And we were just at a very beautiful area, and again, the moon was out, and it was just beautiful. And I told Donna, I said, I thank you so much for, being out here and getting me back out here, because I said, now I know why I used to love being out in these woods at night. I mean, now I remember it was all coming back, and I said, it's just beautiful.
Well, you're very welcome, Darrin.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. But that same night, a peculiar thing happened, and as much as I liked it out there, I was uneasy the rest of the night. But I could say I wasn't enjoying it as much, but it was still very beautiful out there. But it was interesting as well because, I mean, that was the whole reason we were out there, you know. So.
Well, why don't we talk a little bit about this area and the things that we've heard?
Okay, well, I'll gladly let you do that because you're. I've been hogging this whole show on the air.
Cute, but go ahead.
Yeah, the show's about you, honey. No,
well, I had,
go ahead, Darrin. Go ahead, Darrin.
I had met
I'll
with Donna.
I'll just pop in every so often.
Okay, please. I had met with Donna.
Who was with y'all that night?
Well, just Donna, myself, and my son, son Darrin Jr.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, I had met with Donna. We had interviewed this boy, and back in December, and I think at the same time we went out the first night out into this area, and we had some pretty interesting feedback or some kind of activity, and we just felt that this area had such recent activity and established activity over the years, documented activity, that we would keep coming out to it. And the third time we went out, we would try to go every time about a full moon because visibility is a lot better. Plus, it makes me more comfortable because I like to be able to see at night.
Exactly.
My incident occurred in the dark, and I didn't want to have that reliving and you know, trying to break gradually. But the third incident, we were in this area, and just beautiful, off of a tributary of the St. Johns River, actually. Right around the Orange, Osceola County line, west of Brevard a little bit. And we had been sitting in this area for a while, and Donna had said something about, well, or I think I may have suggested, you know, why don't you give one of your calls? I used to be very skeptical about those, but our first time out there, she had made this call, and it was instantly answered back by something that sounded very similar, and it startled, I think, even her, and we all looked at each other, and I remember my boy saying, Dad, if anything comes running at us and you don't drive your truck away, I will. You know, and I was laughing. It kind of put me at ease. And then she made another one, and it got answered back again almost instantly. So I became a believer in that right then and there. And then it's out. She made this call, and when she did, it wasn't about my son was telling me then too. He goes, I hate when that happens because, you know, I said, oh, we'll be okay. And it was good having him along because it made me, that protective side of me, try to override my you know, before. And it wasn't about a minute later, I started hearing some crackling off in the brush, again, downwind of us. And right away I realized that. And I said, Donna, do you hear that? She heard it. And so we were listening, and gradually this crackling noise got louder and louder, and worked its way up to us again about 30 yards off in a tree line.
This is when we heard it. It sounded like a huffing, right?
Well,
was this the time that we heard the huffing sound?
No, I was listening, and it was reminding me of an encounter that happened with my dad up in Tennessee. Of an incident, right. You know, very similar. And I was trying to say in my mind, okay, look, you've had 2 encounters in your life. You know, that's probably more than most people will ever have. My dad included. He's a hunter and goes out all the time. And I said, you know, that's probably it. You probably couldn't be around one of these things again if you tried. But nevertheless, you know, I'm trying to tell myself this is probably a deer or a hog or something that's, you know, this place is full of them. That's got to be. But it just sounded, again, almost bipedal, you know. And it stopped about 20 or so yards off in this tree line. And this is an area that's got a lot of established activity. And my heart was going, and I think I even made a comment to Donna. I said, boy, my heart's going. She says, you'll be fine, you know. And then I felt a little silly, like, gosh, this is funny. I'm supposed to be the one, you know, protective and calming everybody else, you know. So,
well, you should not feel silly, honey, remember?
Yeah. So I was squatting down, you know, and I'm thinking, you know, as long as we're all sitting low, and I was thinking to myself, this is good because if it is one of those things, it's going to have to be looking back and forth and try to figure out what we are. And something was telling me, don't stand up because it's going to react. Don't stand up because it's going to react. But I'm older now, and my legs were just so stiff, you know, I had to stand up. Well, as soon as I stood up, this thing bolted away from us, bolted away.
Oh, my God.
In the direction it came from.
Remember the first thing we heard was that crashing.
Right.
It was like a log or a tree falling.
It was very big and heavy, whatever it was. And when it bolted, I got excited, you know. But it stopped, and when it stopped, it was blowing or snorting or blowing. So I was thinking to myself, geez, that's something a deer will do. It must have been a deer, but it's a very big, heavy deer for Florida. Well, then it started walking back toward us again. And then when it stopped, it was moving back and forth along this tree line, almost like it was trying to see us or get a better angle or something. And I was telling Donna, I said, if this thing works its way around and comes out, that's our way out of here. And we were backed up into a swamp. We had swamp. That's why we stopped as far as we went in. We had swamp and a creek all around us, And I was not feeling too good about that. I'm thinking, boy, as long as it stays there, obviously I felt good because it bolted away from me. So whatever it was had a little bit of not fear, but, didn't want to be. But I'm thinking to myself, a deer wouldn't just come back after it's been spooked. I've been in the woods. I know that. And in fact, I called my dad. He's a hunter in Tennessee, and I talked to him about that a couple of days later. And he says, son, that's a mystery. He says, that's certainly not a deer. A deer might be interested in someone's scent, but after they get spooked off, they wouldn't come back. And I said, what about a hog? He said, no, a hog wouldn't do that. It wouldn't come back. And I said, well, there are a few bears here and there. You think it may have been? He says, no, bears generally try to avoid people. I said, well, Dad, it was big, and that doesn't leave too many alternatives. And right before that, on the previous night out there, we were driving along. There was a horrendous smell that we went by. Right when we come around this curve in another creek, and they seem out here, they seem to use the creeks a lot. And we didn't know there was a creek. We just came around this bend heading toward the area that she had made the calls and she got answered back. We were a couple of miles away. And granted, this area, there's nothing out there but cattle ranches and nothing.
And on that one side of the road, there was nothing but a plowed field. And woods on the other side.
And a couple of little patches of woods right next to the road. Well, we went by, and it was awful.
It smelled like decaying roadkill.
Yeah, and I said, but normally when you go by something that's been killed, you smell it just for maybe 20 or 30 or 40 yards. This was the better part of a mile. It was horrendously strong and overpowering. And I was looking at her mentioning it, and all of a sudden we looked at each other, and I think the light came on at the same time, and I said, Don, when I've been reading some of these incidents that I've been going across, I've read about 1,500 incidents now of the southern United States, and I said, I have read where people have described that smell as this exactly, and I had never smelled one before.
Yeah, I said, let's
turn around. And I said, I had a big 1,000,000 candle watt light. I said, do me a favor, Don, just flash this along the road, and we'll drive back and forth where the smell is and see. There's got to be 2 or 3 dead animals on the side of the road, the way it smelled. Well, we did that. We went up, and then we came back, and right where it was the strongest, I pulled over, and right away there was a little creek there. And I said, there's a creek running right through here where this is really strong. And the wind was out of the north. It was the winter. It was very cool that night. I think it got in the 40s.
Yeah.
And we could see the little droplets of dew forming in the spotlight. And I was, they were coming directly from this patch. I walked. I said, please, just keep that light on me because I was a little, And I walked, and it stopped right at this patch of woods, right next to the road by this creek. But by then, the smell had dissipated tremendously. It was almost gone. And I got back, and I said, Donna, I don't really smell it that much anymore. She goes, no, it's almost gone. And I said, well, roadkill doesn't just get up and walk off. So I thought it was very possible that one had just crossed the road in front of the truck, as we were coming. And that's what I think. I think there's a good possibility. It could have been roadkill. It could be something else, but
there was no body. There was no
no body. We looked everywhere with that spotlight. I even got off on foot and went looking out, in the pasture with the light, and there was nothing dead. But that's what it smelled, and then it dissipated, and the smell was almost gone.
Well, could I interrupt for a moment? We do have a caller.
Sure.
Okay.
Area code 209. You're on the air.
Oh, hi. I'm just kind of listening. This is very interesting.
Oh,
this is Kathleen?
Yes, this is my first time on the site.
Oh,
well, welcome.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Glad you joined us.
If you don't have any questions, just want to listen, just let us know, and we'll put you back on mute.
Okay. Yeah, I'd just like to listen if I could. Thank you.
You sure
yes, ma'am.
can.
You're welcome.
Thanks for listening in.
Okay. You want to take another caller?
Well, right now we don't have another caller, so
okay.
Continue on with your adventures. They're fascinating.
Okay. Go ahead, Darrin.
Well, another thing I really...
we thought the whatever was making the smell, since the smell was coming out of the north, kind of the northwest area, that's where the plowed field was. So maybe whatever it was had been in that field, because that's where the wind was coming from. So, go ahead, Darrin.
Generally, Donna, I've got a question to ask you. You've had some experience with the Florida skunk ape. What do they obviously have the name skunk ape, so they probably have an odor that's very distinct.
Well,
so
yeah.
What would you say they smell like?
The reason they're called skunk ape is because people just in the past had described a very strong skunk musky smell, but also with that was a rotten egg garbage smell,
like a sulfury smell mixed in.
Yeah. So that's why they called it skunk ape, because it smelled so bad.
Huh.
Yep. But as as y'all know, not all encounters have smell.
No.
With Darrin's encounter, because he was upwind. But that's where skunk ape comes from.
I think, Donna, from the reports that I've gotten about skunk apes along the Gulf Coast and Florida areas, most of the accounts say that their hair tends to be longer too than what we generally see up here.
Yeah, longer, and I can't attest to this because I've never seen one. Longer and a reddish brown also, but they also have different colors. A lot of sightings say they have the reddish brown hair. Others, it's darker. Now, talking about hair, the interview that Darrin and I went on, when I asked the young man, and those of you who know me will get a kick out of this probably, I asked the young man what the hair looked like, because he got a very good view of the hair because the setting sun was behind the creature, shining through the hair. So I asked him what the hair looked like. He looked right at me and said, "Ma'am, the hair looks just like yours," which means, and I thought this was very intriguing, fuzzy, curly, and long. He said it was just like my hair, but darker. That's what the young man said. So
really curly.
Yeah, curly, frizzy, fuzzy, and long.
We do have another caller. Can we interrupt for just a second and take this caller?
I'm here.
Okay. Caller, go ahead.
I wanted to comment, since you guys were really involved in the smell, about what the components might be and what glands might produce them. When you're smelling rotten eggs, you're smelling hydrogen sulfide.
Okay.
And you mix that with methane, and you get the feces smell mixed in with that.
Right.
All right, because methane and hydrogen sulfide is what's contained in when we fart, if you want me to be blunt about it. We just don't produce as much, but their glands may be able to sequester hydrogen sulfide and methane in gland sacs, and then when alerted or in danger, they give off a musk. And where I'm from in southeast Texas, there's oil fields. And you can smell hydrogen sulfide and methane all the time, but it's really thin because they tend to cap these things and don't let it flow out on the ground. But I've smelled both these things together and garbage. You combine all that, and you're getting close to the smell. But there's urine mixed in with it. So for all I know, it knew you were in the area, and it marked the area, maybe to throw you off as it went in another direction. but don't sell them short on intelligence. That's about all I had to say.
Oh, okay. No, you never sell these creatures short on intelligence. You're right there.
Yes.
Also,
and we
I'd like to
really
make
appreciate you. Oh, go ahead.
I'd like to make a quick comment too. There's this preserve south of me. Incidentally, I've just had somebody give an eyewitness account of a large panther, Florida panther, in there, and I had heard 2 others. I couldn't believe it, but and I had told Donna, I said, I look over my shoulder a lot more in there now, not so much because of the panther, but because if a panther could be existing in this area, what else could be coming in here too? Because those Florida Bigfoot, a skunk ape, they've been able to be on fringes of civilization that you wouldn't believe, But there's a big drainage ditch area there, and a lot of times the water is stagnant. And I'm not used to the lay of the land up here as much. It's a little different than South Florida, but in this area where this drainage ditch is, there's when that water sits still and that muck and everything and swampy area is packed, it'll start to decay and it'll give off a very bad odor at times that's a little similar. And anybody that's had hound dogs, that have traipsed off through canals and everything, they get the smell pretty bad. So I just figured, I theorized, I postulated that if these things are crossing ditches and canals and all the things that gentleman just said combined, that could definitely, with that musk, that could definitely give an odor. And
when they hunt,
with our tropical heat that we have here, the heat that we have most of the year, it would probably make that a lot more pronounced than anywhere else.
Yes.
So
I agree.
This is just pure conjecture here now, but I've often thought, they are so much alike, Homo sapiens, that they probably have glands in the axillary region, the armpits and at the groin, and they may have some tarsal glands on their legs. I've just thought about that. And, the hair, if they were to emit this odor, the hair would certainly trap it, and I'm sure that they urinate on their legs and hair around their groin, too.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yep. Well, Darrin, keep going with...
Well, I started to say, when I first met Donna,
We do have one more caller wants to say hello before Darrin continues, okay?
Okay, that's fine.
It is Pat Rance from Florida. Everyone out there knows Pat Rance. And Pat, we're bringing you on. We want to say hello.
Hey, Darrin, how are you?
Pat, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good.
Hey, Pat, how you doing?
Hey, Donna.
Hello, Pat.
Hello, Pat.
Hey, Bryan. Hey, Laurie. Got a regular party line going, huh?
Yeah.
Well, Darrin, I just wanted to say it was nice meeting you. I met Darrin. I was able to meet Darrin a couple of weeks ago, I guess maybe a month ago or so. Spent an evening with him.
Did he tell you his story?
Yes, he did. We were sitting out in the woods when he was relating these different experiences to us. So the setting was really good.
Yeah. That's about the time that big owl almost took off my head.
Yeah, that was really cool. Yeah, I did a call, and about, it wasn't a minute later, this big owl swooped by, went right over Darrin's head, and went past him and did a 180 and flew back right over Donna's head and then perched in a tree. I mean, this thing must have been 7 feet off the ground, and Darrin's about 6 foot.
Oh, wow.
Made for a real
got
nice,
a good view of it.
Oh, yeah, and there was a nice moon out, and then a little while later a second owl came, and they were sitting right, just 20, 30 feet away from us, just going back and forth for a while. So it made a real nice evening out there.
Yeah.
Nice setting.
Anything you want to add to what we did or when you were out there with us?
Well, I think it's a real good area. I'd like to get back out there again, maybe see if we can find a different way in, also explore a couple different points of entry. But
Pat,
I think,
just west of there, I was out the next day. I think I went out the next day because I had lost a walkie-talkie, and I found it.
Oh, you did?
And,
Good.
Just west of where we were, for one thing, the granddaddy of all cypress trees is right there. And that path, that creek dries up and then it continues on. But there are some really neat areas. And I found some scat that apparently it wasn't what I thought it was. It was a little strange looking, but I found other. But that area that first stalking happened that I had just described earlier, I went to that area. I wanted to see what was there, and there was a hill, a small hill that's cleared off at the top, and it's just oaks growing on it. And that's where this whatever it was came down from. So it's cleared enough. I thought that would be a great place to sit on top of that hill one night and make some calls from there, because if anything was trying to stalk us from the ground, it won't probably be able to smell us as easy because we're going to be on the highest ground around.
Sounds good to me.
I really think that'd be a neat spot to find and see. I looked on my topographical map and it didn't really show it. So,
Yeah.
Sounds like a plan.
Sounds like a plan.
Was that,
Sure does.
Darrin, was that going down that trail that we had walked down?
into the woods right when we left that night? Yeah.
Yeah.
It goes, it curves around and it just goes right up, and in fact, DJ sat on a stump and he got half ate up by red ants because, they go to the highest ground, poor kid, and, but yeah, it's really, really interesting, and it's so wide open. It would be a neat place to camp.
Well, that's the same path. Remember I told you that I had heard footsteps?
Yeah. And I was thinking, this is where this thing, whatever it was, walked right down, and then it started, pacing it back and forth.
Right.
That's so I would like us to go up there next time. A couple of weeks will be another full moon.
We can plan on that.
Yeah, that sounds about 2 more weeks.
Yep.
We do have another caller.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and catch him real quick. Caller 828, you are on the air.
Hi, Laurie in Tennessee. How you doing? It's JB here.
Hey, JB. How you doing there?
I'm doing all right. Darrin and Donna, great guests tonight, and certainly enjoying it. Darrin, that's a fascinating story. One of the things that I find intriguing is how they let us know, or in your case, let you know, it's time to be concerned. There's a lot of talk about possibly pheromones, possibly ultrasound, or there could be some other ways that they let you know that we don't understand, or that perhaps we mistakenly put into the area of the paranormal, but really it's just something that goes back to an ability that we had a long time ago and gave up.
Yeah,
exactly. I think you're onto something there. I think you're heading in the right direction.
I still apparently have a little bit of that left. A couple of incidents, just not incidents related to this and so much, but there's bigger animals in this preserve south of me, and on 2 occasions, right before something jumped, I just kind of had an idea that I don't want to make people think I'm a kook or something, but I just had an idea that there was something in the area. On one occasion, it was because it was just very quiet, and that's about the area where that guy a while later saw that panther. But on another night, I was out with my son, and I stopped, and I was looking over in this area, and then when I started to go again, something bolted out, but it was, it might have been a deer or a hog. It was a pretty good size. But the thing that astounded me about that, and I thought of this often, was when I first became concerned in that wood area, and I'm sure that whatever that call was I heard was it. I didn't initially hear anything. And I've read reports of this, too. It amazes me that these big, bulky things can move so quietly, but then when it wanted to, then it just traipsed through those...
unless they're pacing you, too, and in which case they seem to want you to know they're there.
Yeah. But...
and in so many cases... you stop, and they'll stop, but they're careful to make one more step just so you know that they're there.
The first time it stopped dead as soon as I stopped. The second time it took a couple of extra steps.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I knew I was in trouble.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's been a very great, interesting show. And, Donna, I think that experiment or our investigation is going to have to wait. Donna and I were fascinated by some theories that these beings are that they migrate, and we figured that probably Miami Beach would be the place to look for them this time of year. I suggested the Fontainebleau. I've seen some strange things there before, and
yeah. And I told him that I would make sure that I got him through
yeah.
the jungle.
Yes.
Of
Well, at my age, Donna would have to break trail for me, that's for sure, especially through some of those cocktail lounges.
That's right.
Okay, well, thanks a lot, gang, and really enjoying the show.
Good talk to you.
I appreciate you calling.
Talk to you later.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. Yeah, he's a good guy. He's a good guy.
Yes, he is. He always sends us the most wonderful, glowing emails, you know. And
Yes, he does.
And he doesn't know how much that means to us. It really encourages us to do a stand-up job, you know, and stay on our game. And so we thank you, JB, if you're out there listening. Thank you. And right now we don't have any callers. 93646. Whoops, that's my number. 646. I'm tickled now. 646-716-4530 is the calling number. Right now, I'm going to let Darrin get back to what he's been trying to say for the last 10 minutes. So go ahead, Darrin.
Well, no, I was just going to say, you know, I really appreciated Donna coming out on that first interview that she had mentioned earlier. I had been talking to my dad back and forth about some incidents and reminding him of a couple of things back in East Tennessee. He says, "Oh yeah, you know," and then he called me or talked to me one day and was telling me that he had seen in a magazine about these people that we interviewed. It was in this magazine, so I was kind of a little skeptical. I try to be a little skeptical and get a couple of sources, but I found the actual Florida Today newspaper account of it. So I had always dreamed about, you know, interviewing some people, and I talked to Donna. So I talked to the people. They were very gracious people, and not only we had a bonus because not only did the kid have an incident that was fairly recent in 2004, but the father had his own experience back in the I believe the late 70s. In an area that also had a lot of activity, Canaveral Groves.
Right, and both sightings are listed on the website.
Yeah.
If you want to put that back up for me.
Yes, we'll put that website back up. Lauren, are you able to do that?
Yes, I've been trying my computers.
Here you are. It's www.stalkinghominidr.com.
Right.
That's what it is. Okay.
Yep. And that young man, if I remember correctly, Darrin, he's never been out there since, has he?
Yeah, I was going to say, you know, when I one of the things that impressed me, he was just a nice family, nice kid. He's about 16 now. He was apparently 12 when this happened.
Right.
And his mom was laughing, and you know, the area they're on the end of a road in a rural area, right next to a large ranch that joins into the St. Johns River area. And this big field has since been cleared, and she said even though it's been cleared, he has not gone out there since that day. And I told her, I said, well, I can really appreciate that, believe me.
Yeah.
But and he was a little, when we were just talking with him, you know, he was polite but subdued, but you could look at him and tell there was an experience. There's certain things you just can't fake.
Right.
And I had over the years had some illustrations, a couple of pictures, and then a lot of illustrations that were conveyed to this artist. I can't pronounce his last name. He did one for Dan Jackson and a few others. And I just set out a bunch of portraits of what these things were supposed to look like, as explained to these artists. And I laid them out across the table, and I said, do you remember, did you get a good look? Did it look like any of these? He reached right over and picked this one out that was one that was seen in South Florida in the Everglades, I guess. And he pointed, he said, that's the one right there. It looked almost exactly like that, only it was standing a little higher out of the palmettos. And then, of course, Donna was asking to describe the hair, and he just looked at her and said, just like yours, you know.
Yeah.
And that just amazed me.
Maybe, Darrin, if you want to send that copy of that picture, we can put it up on the website so people can see what it
Yeah,
actually
I
looks
think I may have given that to you when I first had given you some stuff. I may have. I'll give you another one, but I may have given that to you.
Okay.
That was the one I think I gave you out of that file. I said, here's the one that he picked. But
Okay.
if not, then I'll send another one to you.
Okay.
I don't know how to
good.
put them up on websites. I'm not that computer tech yet. Techie.
Sorry, neither am I. Neither am I. One thing I wanted to mention in that area that we go, Darrin, it was the second to the last time we went out, I think it was, and it was on that same stretch of road that we had got the 2 responses from the first time we went out.
Right.
Well, actually, there's 2 things I want to mention. Those 2 owls that we heard after I did that call about a few minutes afterwards.
Yeah, they were very loud. Uh-huh.
Yeah, one was in the woods. We heard that one first, the one to our right. And it sounded like an owl. It just was a very loud owl. And then a couple of minutes later, we heard a very loud owl out in cow pasture. Well,
yeah, it seemed like it was right out in the middle of the cattle pasture. Exactly.
Yeah, and the closest trees were like a mile away.
Yeah.
So it was like right in the middle of this cow pasture. And I'm thinking, okay, either this thing is on the ground making these noises, or maybe there's a little itty-bitty tree out there somewhere that this thing is sitting on, because it was very loud and it was where no trees were. We both thought that was rather different. Oh, and the second thing, Darrin, remember the very first time we went out and we were sitting back, we hadn't gone into the area as far yet, and that sound we heard in the trees?
Yes.
Remember I said we had no idea what it was, and the closest that we could figure the sound was a combination between a puppy yip and a monkey chatter. But it wasn't two separate.
Wow.
It wasn't 2 separate sounds. It was an actual combination of the 2. That's the closest thing that we could come up with that what the sound sounded like.
That was in the same area that thing came down off that hill, as it turned out, and stalked around.
Right.
And I remember we were saying, could that be a coyote? But it wasn't really something that sounded like a coyote. It was just the closest thing we could think of at first. But yeah, very, very odd.
It was very odd. Never heard it before. It wasn't a coyote. I have no idea what it was, but that's what it sounded like.
That's so strange.
Yeah. It was a very interesting area.
Like I said, I've noticed when I got up here, when I started researching, one of the first things that I was doing was putting points on a map, and I'm thinking, man, this area, there's almost as much activity here as there was in South Florida, and I always thought it was just mainly South Florida and the Ocala National Forest, and I'm looking and I'm thinking, and then I noticed the St. Johns River just wide through there, and there's not very much around it, and I said, this is it. They must be migrating, but I don't believe they're migrating. I think they're holding, because that last interview, that was a 2004 incident, and then all these this recent activity. I really believe that this is a gold mine for these things.
Yep. Yeah. But we'll be going out there again.
Yep. Look forward to it.
Yeah. Me too.
With some, with the usual. But I'm getting better.
Yeah, you're getting much better. The last time we went out, when Pat was with us, you actually walked by yourself down part of that trail, remember?
Well, Pat, I'm not just saying this because you're on the line, but Pat just really, there's something about his presence. I mean, he's just a great guy, a gentleman, and just, I don't know, he almost exudes confidence and security. I don't know what to say, and it's just kind of inspiring. But yeah, I wandered off a little bit, but I got to a certain point, and I came back. I wanted to go farther. I just couldn't quite make myself.
But you did good.
I actually thought it's easy to see shadows at night with the moon out, but I actually thought I saw something moving in the trees beyond, so I said, well, I'll just head back now.
But you're doing great. You really are.
I do too. I think you are going to do
excellent job.
Excellent.
Yes.
I thank you guys. Thank you. That means a lot.
Couldn't have been better.
And I'm going to tell you what. I really think you're an asset.
He
is. Those that are searching for this creature, searching to learn more about them and understand them. I'm glad to see someone like you, Darrin, and Donna, and Pat, and in the field. You've got the right mentality. And I
Donna's
think
an incredible person. I mean, I want to say Pat's an incredible person, but Donna, I mean, you know, the first night we were out there, we stopped where there was a documented sighting had happened. We were reading the report and saying, okay, it had to be this, you know, this area, not this one, you know, on either side of this creek where there was some footprints seen and whatnot. And we're looking, and then there was some strands of hair and this caught in this barbed wire fence in this great big opening. And Donna mentioned that she saw it right off, and she was explaining about it, and she was looking for holes in the brush where it might be going through. She just brings out a lot of things that I'm not quite there yet. She's just a consummate professional. I mean, great to be around, and you know. Plus, I mean, I'm from South Florida. I was worried, you know. I'm thinking another reason I wanted to bring my son. I'm thinking, you know, she's a nice gal and all, but you know, she doesn't know me from Adam, and here she is, you know, willing to go way off out here. I mean, what a dedicated person, you know. And
gee, you're making me blush, Darrin. Stop.
Thank you, Darrin, for taking your son out there too. We all need to be grabbing up these youngsters and getting them in the woods, because that's the future of all this research.
Yeah, he doesn't always like it, but you know, he enjoys it once he gets out there.
Yeah, he's a good sport.
Yeah, he is. He's a great kid. He really is.
And,
yeah.
Plus, you know, we have a starlight scope. It's kind of neat, you know, for a young guy. I guess that's kind of pretty neat to be looking around at night, and you know, the thought of maybe actually getting to see one in the starlight scope. It's just
Anyway, my other phone went off, but I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine. I'm going to tell you what, though, this story that he had. You know, back in the very beginning, when I had them running around my neighborhood, and I didn't know what they were, and when I learned what they were, I was absolutely terrified. And at that particular place that I lived, that they were notorious for running up and banging on the side of the house, running across the roof, and general antics. And I would be on the phone with anybody who would answer the phone in the middle of the morning and say, please just stay with me, because if something happens, I want someone to know. You know, I mean, I was that terrified. Well, when I listened to his story, that same terrified came back. I have a better understanding of things now. Realize that they will do a lot of things to scare you, but I think initially, and I'm going to say this, I think initially and mostly they will not harm you. They may scare you half to death, but I believe they will not harm you. That not everyone feels that way, but I just wanted to say that.
Well, I found if they're acting aggressive like that, just talk to them calmly. I think it'll so surprise them that they'll immediately their curiosity will take over and cancel out the aggression, and they will hang around for a while. I've had on 2 occasions where they've stayed front and center in plain sight for well over an hour and a half on 2 different occasions in front of other witnesses. And that strategy seems to work, and they calm down and get real calm. And I think it allows them to satisfy their curiosity as well as it allowed me to get a real good view and to watch them for a while, you know, right in plain sight, up close.
I would love to have seen that. I really would have loved to have been there.
Yeah.
It was
Pat, don't you imagine
quite an experience.
that they have something, whether it be the scent receptors in their nose or whatever, but they're picking up on those pheromones that are coming off of our body when we really get excited or scared.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that just sort of feeds the fire, you know, if you can remain calm. I think, like you said, I think it sort of tempers everything.
I really do. I think their eyesight is extraordinary, especially in the dark time like that at nighttime. And I think they key off of our body language. You know, are we running for cover? Are we screaming? Or are we grabbing pistols and flashlights?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think if you kind of sit back and be calm and relax and just enjoy the situation as it unfolds and not display. I mean, I was nervous, don't get me wrong, but, you know, I really fought hard to overcome the fear, and because I really wanted to extend it. I wanted it to last all night. And so I just sat back and really just tried to stay calm. And the one night I actually even stood up and went around the campfire and walked closer to it. And, you know, was talking to it and waving to it and trying to get it to come in closer, you know, and it didn't. But at first it was bobbing back and forth to the left and the right, you know, and it was clearly agitated when it first came in. And then after 5 or 10 minutes, it gradually calmed down and I think it was using the opportunity to observe us as I was observing it. You know, it was kind of an equal opportunity for both of us to observe each other. You know, it was just one of those spur-of-the-moment situations that worked out really well. And I learned a lot about what to do and what not to do. And I really think that can be duplicated. I've been lucky enough to duplicate it twice now. You know, I'm looking for the third time.
I think this area we go to, if we go to it often enough, I think we have a very good chance of having a third opportunity.
I do too, and I really think you ought to start gifting every time you're out there. Same place every time.
Doing what now?
You know, gifting. Leaving objects out there, or even little food items.
That's a good idea.
You know, so it recognizes you that every time you come out there, you're leaving the same type of objects. And,
yep, that's a really good idea.
That helps to promote it.
And it also helps if you do decide to gift, leave them something that's going to be healthy for them. And if it's not a food, you know, if it is a food item, something that would be healthy for them. And
or maybe some 100% DEET, because there's a lot of bugs out there. They might appreciate that.
Yeah.
We'll definitely be dealing with those pretty soon.
Yes.
They'd just squeeze the can and bite into it with their teeth, probably.
Yeah.
Well, folks, we've had a wonderful show. We want to thank Donna and Cohrs from Hominid Research. Yeah.
Right.
And Darrin Bishop, who is also a member of Hominid Research now. And we thank Pat for coming on, and our caller from Southeast Texas who stayed online. We thank you for calling in.
Oh, and by the way, Pat is one of our researchers for
He is, that's
research.
right, he is. I'm sorry, and Pat.
And it's a great honor. I appreciate it. I appreciate the honor.
You're very welcome.
But we're fixing to close the show down. I want to let everyone know that Kathy Strain is going to be our guest next week. She wrote the book Giants, Cannibals, and Monsters, and it's based on mythical legends of Bigfoot, and it's going to be a fascinating show. We want everyone to be sure to be here next week. We have a little special treat. My son is the one that did the intros and the outros for the show, and I wanted to play it today where he was practicing, trying to get ready to do the, you know, he always says good night and God bless. So we've been trying to find time to do it, and so now we have time to do it. So we're going to go ahead and sign off with this special sign-off that he did, and I hope y'all enjoy it. Everyone, we'll talk to you in a little bit.
Y'all, thank you for
Good night, everyone.
Thank
you for coming.
Good night.
God bless.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night. Here we go.
With your host, Tennessee Cherokee. Blah, blah, blah. Boom goes the dynamite. You have been listening to... Okay. Would you stop? Okay. You have been listening to Nite Callers. Good night and God bless. Pleading. It's like I'm going door to door selling the Watchtower.
That was great.
Oh my God.
Donna, thanks again.
No, thank y'all.
Nite Callers was filmed in front of a live audience. Dave, will I dream, Dave? No, Sal.
That's funny.
That is just too funny.
All right, serious.
Okay, good night, guys.
Thanks for...
Thank you so much.
Night, Donna, thanks again. Thank you.
God.
Thanks, Darrin. Thank you, Laurie.
I know.
Thanks,
Good night.
All right, one more.
Oh, God.
Thanks for listening to Nite Callers. Good night.
Golly. Thanks for listening to Nite Callers. Good night and God bless. Thank you for listening to Nite Callers. Good night and God bless.
There you go.
Like that?
That's
I can't do it again.
Got it going.
I think we finally got it all put together.
Yeah. Well, I got people beeping in, so I guess I better go. Everyone that's listening in on the archives, join us next week for Kathy's Strain. It's going to be another great show at Callers. So good night, everyone.
Good night, all. Good night, Laurie. Good night, Tennessee. Night, Donna.
Good night.
All right. Good night.
God
Thank
bless.
you, Darrin.
Thank you all. God bless. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.